How twin-engine aircraft took over the skies. For decades, long-haul air travel was dominated by massive four-engine aircraft such as the Boeing 747 and Airbus A380. More engines meant more power, more reliability, and the ability to connect distant corners of the world. Yet today, airlines are increasingly replacing these giants with aircraft powered by just two engines. How did this happen? And why are twin-engine aircraft now the preferred choice for airlines around the world? In this video, we'll explore the technology, economics, and regulations that transformed commercial aviation. To understand why twin-engine aircraft dominate the skies today, we first need to go back to the early days of the jet age. During the 1950s and 1960s, jet engine technology was still relatively new. Although jet aircraft offered greater speed and comfort than propeller-driven airliners, their engines were not as reliable as modern designs. Airlines and aircraft manufacturers needed a way to ensure that aircraft could continue flying safely even if an engine failed. The solution was simple: add more engines. As a result, many of the world's first successful jet airliners were equipped with four engines. Aircraft such as the Boeing 707 and the Douglas DC-8 became symbols of the new jet age, carrying passengers across continents at speeds that had once seemed impossible. Having four engines provided additional power and a greater margin of safety. If one engine failed, the aircraft could still continue its journey using the remaining engines. At a time when engine reliability was far lower than it is today, this redundancy was considered essential. The trend continued into the era of wide-body aircraft. In 1969, the legendary Boeing 747 entered service and revolutionized air travel. With its enormous size and four powerful engines, the aircraft made international travel more accessible than ever before. For decades, the formula seemed unbeatable. Large aircraft needed four engines, and four-engine aircraft ruled the world's busiest long-haul routes. But behind the scenes, advances in engine technology were already beginning to challenge this assumption. And those improvements would eventually change commercial aviation forever. To understand why four-engine aircraft became the standard, we need to look at the limitations of early jet engines. In the early days of commercial aviation, jet engines were far less reliable than they are today. Engine failures were more common, maintenance requirements were higher, and airlines could not always depend on a single engine to operate for thousands of hours without issues. Because of this, aircraft manufacturers relied on multiple engines to improve safety. If one engine failed during a flight, the remaining engines could continue producing enough thrust to keep the aircraft airborne and allow it to reach a suitable airport. Long-distance flights presented an even greater challenge. Many routes crossed vast oceans, deserts, and remote regions where emergency landing options were limited. Airlines wanted as much redundancy as possible, making four-engine aircraft the preferred choice for these missions. More engines also meant more available power. Early jet engines produced significantly less thrust than modern engines, so aircraft needed several engines to carry large numbers of passengers and cargo over long distances. This philosophy shaped commercial aviation for decades. The belief was simple: the larger the aircraft and the longer the route, the more engines were needed. However, engineers were working on a new generation of jet engines that would become more powerful, more efficient, and far more reliable than anything that had come before. These advances would eventually challenge one of aviation's oldest assumptions. And that brings us to the next chapter: the engine technology revolution. By the 1970s and 1980s, jet engine technology was advancing at an incredible pace. Engineers were no longer focused solely on producing more power. They were also improving efficiency, durability, and reliability. One of the biggest breakthroughs was the development of high-bypass turbofan engines. Unlike earlier jet engines, these designs could generate more thrust while consuming less fuel. They were also quieter and cheaper to operate. As engine technology improved, failures became increasingly rare. Airlines began to trust that modern engines could safely operate for thousands of hours with minimal issues. This was a major shift from the early days of commercial aviation. At the same time, manufacturers were developing engines powerful enough to move large aircraft using only 2 engines. What once required 4 engines could now be accomplished with just 2 highly efficient turbofans. The benefits were impossible to ignore. Fewer engines meant lower fuel consumption, reduced maintenance costs, and lighter aircraft. For airlines, this translated directly into higher profits. Aircraft manufacturers quickly recognized the potential. New generations of twin-engine airliners were designed to take advantage of these technological improvements, offering airlines a more economical alternative to traditional 4-engine jets. However, one major obstacle still remained. Even if twin-engine aircraft were reliable, aviation regulations still limited where they could fly. To truly challenge the dominance of 4-engine aircraft, those rules would have to change. That brings us to the end of Part 1. So far, we've explored the age of 4-engine aircraft, why early airliners needed multiple engines, and how advances in engine technology began to change the aviation industry. But despite these technological breakthroughs, twin-engine aircraft still faced a major obstacle. Aviation regulations limited where they could fly, preventing them from taking over many long-haul routes. In the next part, we'll look at ETOPS, the rule that changed aviation forever, why airlines began switching to twin-engine aircraft, and the advantages that made them the preferred choice around the world. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss Part 2.